Hello students, and welcome to today's chemistry class for we shall be taking a look at the topic salts. But before we proceed, I would like to just tickle your fancy a bit. Do you know what the electrons in the outermost shell of an atom are called? They are called valence electrons. Let's now take a look at our lesson objectives. At the end of this lesson, the student should be able to define a salt, mention different types of salts, mention properties of salts, and mention uses of salts. Moving on now, what is a salt? A salt is an ionic compound formed when the hydrogen of an acid is partly or completely replaced by a metal or ammonium ion. If you take a good look at this slide, you will see how HNO3, when sodium replaces the hydrogen ion, you have NaNO3, a salt. When it is calcium, you see the salt that is formed there. When it's aluminium, you see the salt that is formed, and when it is ammonium ion, you also see the salt that is formed there. It's on the diagram. Types of salts. We have the normal salt, the acid salt, the basic salt. We also have the complex salts. We have hydrated salts and the double salts. Let's now take a look at them one after the other. The acid salt. These are salts that are partially ionized in solution. Only part of their ionizable hydrogen atoms have been replaced. They still contain ionizable hydrogen atoms. Therefore, even though they are salts, they possess all the properties of an acid. They can turn blue litmus paper red. All the properties of an acid, they still contain it. A good example is NaOH reacting with H2SO3, and you can see the equation there. NaHSO3 is the acid salt plus water. Now the basic salts. These are salts that still have one or more ionizable hydroxyl ions, that is OH minus. They have properties of salts and that of bases. Now, a good example is what you are seeing on your screen. CaOH, that's calcium hydroxide, reacting with HCl. It will give us CaOH Cl in an aqueous form plus H2O. The CaOHCl is the basic salt. Let's now move on to normal salt. These are salts that do not have any replaceable hydrogen or hydroxyl ions in them. A good example, HCl reacting with NaOH, you can see NaCl plus H2O as the product. Now, NaCl is our normal salt. It doesn't contain any hydrogen or hydroxyl ions. They are also called neutral salts because they are neither acidic nor basic in nature. Double salt. A salt formed from two different salts whose solution gives test for all the ions present in it. You can see on the slide there the equation for the potassium aluminium tetrasulfate 6 dodecahydrate, which is also shortly called potash alum. The complex salt. Now, the complex salt is a salt which produces one simple ion and a complex ion in its aqueous solution. This is a good example: potassium hexacyanoferrate 2. The next type of salt we'll be dealing with is the hydrated salt. These are salts that contain some molecule of water in them. Example: copper tetrasulfate 4 pentahydrate. You can see the equation on the slide. Let's now move on to uses of salts. Salts are used in the manufacture of many industrial products like chlorine gas. Salts are also used in the manufacture of agricultural products like fertilizers and weedicides. Salts are used in the manufacture of consumer and pharmaceutical products like laxatives. Salts are also used as food preservatives. Salts can be used as drying agents and antifreeze. Behavior of substances when exposed to air. Now we have the efflorescent substances. These are hydrated salts that lose part or all of their water of crystallization to form a lower hydrate salt when exposed to the atmosphere. Example: sodium trisulcarbonate 4 decahydrate, situation there, which changes to a monohydrate. It loses about 9 molecules of water. Now we have the deliquescent substances. These are compounds which, when exposed to the atmosphere, will absorb moisture and dissolve in it to form solutions. An example is sodium hydroxide pellets. When you leave them in the open, they will absorb moisture from the environment and dissolve in it to form a solution. Now we have the hygroscopic substances. These are compounds which, when exposed to the atmosphere, will absorb moisture but will not dissolve in it and will become sticky in nature. Now we have come to the summary of this class. We have learned about salts, types of salts. We learned about the behavior of substances when exposed to the air, and we learned about uses of salts. And so, it's now time for us to take an assessment to see how far you have studied. Question 1. Dash are hydrated salts that lose part or all of their water of crystallization to form a lower hydrate salt when exposed to the atmosphere. 2. Dash are compounds which, when exposed to the atmosphere, will absorb moisture but will not dissolve in it and will only become sticky. Which of the following is not a property of metals? They are: A. malleable, B. ductile, C. sonorous, D. brittle. With this, we have come to the end of today's lesson. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next lesson.